What is up, guys? This is Brainy Days once again with another video. Today we're going to talk about this cool ability that not everybody has developed, which can basically accelerate your progress a lot. I'm not going to give an exact amount because it varies by people, because not everybody has the same ability to put things into practice and work things out in real time and whatever. So before I do that, let's talk about who am I first. Well, I'm just a dude from Gen Z who basically was self-taught all his life in everything, and right now I got a job as a software developer because of that self-taught, and also pivoted actually from software development to pen testing, which is basically kind of like cybersecurity hacking type things. Of course, the knowledge from my previous software development job helps, but it is everything self-taught as well. And instruments, self-taught, singing, music, a lot of things. Also, languages. This is not my first language, so I'm sure that if you guys already watched some of my videos, you already know. Anyways, I'm going to talk about basically this thing that I've discovered by myself intuitively, but recently have found like the actual scientific point of view that I can point to when talking about this. And what it is basically, I have already talked about reflective cycles, and basically using, for examples, I don't know, like the experience, reflection, action cycle. Then there is like the Gibbs cycle, the Kolb's cycle. There are a lot of them, and basically they are just ways that you can, when you finish an activity and you have a result, you can reflect on that result and basically have a bit of a deep dive within yourself, to then the next time that that thing happens, then you can correct on that feedback and basically fix your mistakes and everything. And what happens is that these reflections are all post the activity, right? But what happens when you are in a really important thing or activity or whatever you want to call it, where you need to adjust in the moment? Well, basically, this is a skill that not everybody trains, and I would almost say that nobody trains it. Almost, like really, really little people talk about this. I haven't seen, honestly, like a learning YouTuber to talk about this part of reflection, but maybe there is. I don't know. Anyway, the thing is about reflection in action is that you have to be able to think on your feet while you're in the current situation and things are actually occurring, because they are making instant changes to your worldview, right? And your pre-built worldview for that topic or whatever you're doing will have to be challenged by what's happening right there and there. And what you do basically is you need to be able to make adjustments, right? And not only that, but like be able to pass judgment on what you're doing and why you're doing it and if it's working or not. But you can't be basically waiting until you finish the activity, right? So what can we do with all of this? Basically, I figured out that if you practice using a lot of reflection cycles post activity, then you kind of start to internalize the reflection questions that you can basically just pull onto yourself whenever you're confused about how to progress on a certain mistake or a certain thing that you kind of blocked, and anything which could be basically adjusted for the better. You can use reflective cycles, right? And if you basically use them a lot, you start to internalize the questions. And if you start to internalize the questions, a lot of the time where you're basically experiencing a mistake in real time, your brain automatically goes to those questions, right? So what can you do if you don't have that ability yet? Basically, you need to ask yourself, okay, man, what is happening, right? What is happening right now? After that, you describe the situation to yourself, you understanding a little bit more, like you try to take yourself out of the situation as much as possible. You try to describe it to someone else, right? Even if you're just talking to yourself, it doesn't matter. And what you do is you describe everything, the what, basically. After that, we say, so what? Okay, this happened. So what? What is the analysis of the situation? What is my feelings? What is the consequences of the event, of the mistake, or whatever? And then after that, you say, okay, now what? What can I do right now? And it sounds pretty simple, but the thing is not actually in the simplicity of it, but rather in doing it in the moment. Because when we're doing a mistake, we don't tend to think about it in a way of like, okay, um, let's just take a moment to breathe, calm down, and assess this situation and just reflect cold heartedly and like just taking the emotions as much as you can out of the question, but at the same time into the question because you got to like understand what you're feeling, you know. You got to understand what you're feeling, and it is kind of similar to like therapy and shit like that. So if you've done that, you will be able to apply this a little bit faster, I believe. Anyways, what you basically have to do is just be able to, on the moment that you're doing the activity and you ask yourself these questions, it's not about the answer to these questions themselves again, but it is rather how you think about the subject and what you've done before. Like, what is the view that you had on the topic which led to that action? That is the thing which you got to fix and reflect upon, not necessarily the action that you did, because like you can adjust the action whenever you want. The thing is not that. The thing is that you were making a decision based on a flawed map, and that is the thing that you should fix when reflecting in the moment, you know? And like it has to be pretty quick, but at the same time, it shouldn't be like super exhaustive because the more time that you spend thinking about it, then the more that you're retracting from action. You have to be able to keep it a little bit of a cycle. And if you get stuck and you can't fix it, and you're like, okay, these questions aren't helping me right now, then what you do is you try to list off 5 things that you can do differently from what you're doing right now. Why do I say five? Like the five whys again. Why always five? Well, because a lot of the time when you say like one or two things, for example, or three, it forces you to think in like the usual ways because it's just like the ones that come to your head first, you know. And basically, when you ask yourself for five, you're forced to sit with it a little bit more, and you just find a lot of things to basically tweak in your approach. And that's it. You gotta basically, if you don't know how to reflect on the moment, then you just gotta tweak the approach that you're doing, and just basically kind of spray fire, firing from the hip, and seeing if you can hit it, and basically see the immediate feedback, and try to basically shorten the cycle of action, feedback, and adjustment. And the shorter that you can do that, basically, the faster that your progress will be. And you got to keep in mind again to reflect in the middle of the action and also reflect a lot post the action. Why am I always talking about reflection, reflection, reflection? Because it is the ultimate cheat code to growing on whichever activity you're doing. Because not everybody thinks about like the mistakes that they're doing. Because a lot of the time it's just uncomfortable, man. It's uncomfortable, and like we already have shitty lives. A lot of us we want to change a lot of things, so not shitty lives like in general, more so of like the planet and everything isn't the best, and life will never just be straight sunshine and rainbows. So you will need to have this ability to basically face the parts of yourself which aren't necessarily bad, but are a little bit daunting to tackle when you're trying to accomplish a certain goal, especially goals like this, like any self learning, you know, where you can't have anyone to tell you, okay, you reached the goal. Like it has to go straight from you, and basically the other can do a judge of, can be a judgment of basically value of how you do the thing, but the actual like main energy where you start and you stop has to come from you. Nobody can force that to you, and like the faster that you learn that, the better. Anyways, that's it, guys. I'm kind of ranting right now, so I just gotta cut the video. I'm sorry if I'm not making any sense. I'm a little bit sick today, so I'm just going off the cuff.